D&D number 10, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Part 2, Chapter 15. September 18th, late Wednesday night, South Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Young Eric came into the room silently and stood by the bed, staring down at the beautiful blonde lying there. Her cheeks were rosy from sleep, mixed with alcohol. He shook his head. She really tied one on, and she was going to continue to pay for it. She stirred and turned over onto her back and opened her eyes. She gasped and sat up. 3! He smiled. Hey, how you feeling? Not so good. She sat up. Ugh, I'm dizzy. He nodded. I'm sure. Will you sit with me for a bit? He sat down on the edge of the bed. Eric, I'm so sorry. You don't have to apologize to me, Jordan. We all make bad decisions every once in a while. I sure have. We usually end up paying for them in one way or another, and I guess you're paying right now. I don't even know what happened. I mean, I've had drinks before, and they never affected me like that. I still feel buzzed and dizzy and nauseated. He nodded. I'm thinking someone put a little something extra in your drink. You mean like date rape stuff? Yeah. Why? Or who? Well, I have my theories, but I'll share them with you when you're completely sober. She sighed. Eric, I think I said some things to you, things like I shouldn't have said. He smiled. You mean like when you said you loved me? Did I say that? Yes, you did. Oh, no, Eric, I'm so sorry. Well, I'm not. I shouldn't have said that. Didn't you mean it? She was silent. Hello? She sniffed. Well, if I meant it, would that just totally mess up the good thing we had going? We have a good thing going because of our feelings for each other. You expressed how you felt, and I hope you meant it, because I am totally falling in love with you, Jordan. Does that make you want to run away from the good thing we have going? She shook her head and wiped tears away. No, but how can you still feel that way after having to come rescue me tonight? I felt that way before tonight, and I still feel that way. So coming to take you away from that party has no bearing on what I feel. I really wasn't the one to rescue you anyway. It was Trout. He had a bad feeling from the start. He said it was because he heard the things Jackie said to you. So I'm just grateful that he was on alert and that he cared enough to call me. Well, what would have happened if he couldn't reach you? Well, then he would have gone in that house and probably put some kids in the hospital and saved you from who knows what. Jordan put her hand to her head and blew out a breath. I am so dizzy. Lie down, sleep. But I don't want you to leave, not yet. He nodded. I'll sit with you for a while. New scene. September 19th, early Thursday morning, South Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Ricky Keno smiled as he spoke on the phone. Yes, ma'am, I'd love to meet the team and speak to them about hard work and discipline. Absolutely, yes, let's make that happen. Okay, thank you. Yes, my sister is taking good care of her. She should be good to go by Monday's practice. Thanks. I'll tell her. Yep. Bye now. He ended the call. Young Eric smiled up at his father in admiration. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. Ricky laughed. Well, since I called Jordan's coach and explained that she'd had someone put something in her drink and get her off the hook, you're going to have to tag along with me when I have to speak. I'm thinking you're going to have to speak too. But I don't. Oh, you speak. You just don't know it yet. Eric nodded. Okay. You're not shy, so why wouldn't you want to speak to a group of girls who would hang on your every word? Young Eric nodded. Because of those last words you just said. Ricky chuckled. It's true. Young girls can be scary sometimes. All the sighs and oohs and giggles and trying to get eye contact or other contact. Young Eric shivered. Ricky Keno, are you bragging about your younger years? Bree said as she came up the stairs from the fitness room. Ricky smiled as he kissed his wife. I'm not bragging. I'm preparing our son. Bree nodded. You might as well be prepared, Eric, because once you win the challenge and then your movie comes out, you're not going to be able to walk around freely like you do now. Young Eric frowned as he thought about it and sighed. So, how's she doing this morning? Bree asked. She's still asleep. She threw up again in the middle of the night. I heard her and went to check on her. She's miserable. Well, Jeffy says to make her some of your grandfather's tea and keep her hydrated. She also said to add the herbal pain reliever and give her a massage to release the toxins and do something to get her to sweat. Young Eric nodded. Sounds like a good time, he said with a smile. Ricky chuckled. Taylor came running into the kitchen. Good morning, everyone. I'm running late. Gotta go. Eat something, Ricky commanded. Dad, Agent Ward is waiting. He works for us, not the reverse. Eat something or take it with you and eat in the car. Either way, you are gonna eat. She grabbed an apple. How's this? Bree added a snack bag of almonds. And this. Ricky frowned. It was a rough night last night, so I'm going to let this slip, but I will see each of you down on the beach at 6 tomorrow morning. Yes, sir, Taylor called as she ran out the door. Bree smiled. She's a whirlwind, and I have to go get dressed and leave for a meeting with my manager. He's trying to get me to do a movie he swears will be the next big thing. Are you thinking about taking it, Mom? She shrugged. I'm thinking about it, but I'm being very picky about what I do anymore. Yes, it's fulfilling, but so is taking care of my family. And one is much more important. Which one? Ricky asked. She smiled. Silly question, my love. She turned and headed to their bedroom. Ricky turned back to his son and looked him over. I get the feeling you want to talk. Young Eric nodded. You're good, Dad. Well, even a blind hog, he said. They sat down at the kitchen table. Talk to me, Ricky urged. Well, it's about Jordan. Ricky nodded. You have pretty strong feelings for her? Yes, sir. I think I'm in love with her. Okay, that's pretty evident. So what's the problem? Well, I know I'm too young to get married, but what makes you think you're too young? Young Eric looked up at his father, surprised by his words. Oh, well, I mean, I know people used to get married really young a long time ago, but then like 50% of all marriages in the U.S. end in divorce, which is really crazy if you think about it. Ricky nodded. So they started advising people to wait, to take a long time to make that decision, to take it slow. And then people were waiting until they were in their 30s. Well, before we go any further, who is the they you're talking about? I guess the experts, the doctors, the establishment, Ricky provided. Young Eric thought and finally nodded. Ricky continued. The same establishment who says women aren't fulfilled unless they have a career outside the home, or that you should only have 1.5 children, that you should have multiple sexual partners and experiences before you marry, and that men and women are the same, and that masculinity is toxic, and that women should look for a man who is well off financially and can provide them with jewelry and shoes and and fancy everything, that women can run the world and don't need men, and that it's okay to break your marriage vows. Why not? Everyone is doing it. Who really is this establishment that is spewing these lies? Think about it. Young Eric sat quietly and the light went on. Well, this is Satan's plan. Ricky nodded. So never go along with what the crowd is currently saying. Always think for yourself and mostly pray and listen, and God will tell you what is truth and what are lies. It's Satan's plan to destroy the family by destroying the relationship between men and women, by destroying the home, by taking away morals and honor, by telling you to wait until you're older, by telling you to party hardy and have a good time while you're young. He is a liar. And people believe his lies all too readily because he has the world in his hands. He is the prince of this world, for now, and we warriors have to battle him at every front. And one way we do that is by not falling for the lies. So you're saying I should marry her? Ricky smiled. Well, not necessarily. You can't blindly follow the establishment, but you can't go blindly the other way either. If you were to marry Jordan, how would you support her? Well, exactly, Dad. I mean, I'm too young to marry because I don't even know what career path I want to follow. I didn't even finish college. You're wording that wrong, son. You're not too young to marry. You're just not ready to marry. Work hard. Figure out what you want to do. You don't have to already be a success to marry. You just need to have a plan, a good plan, a solid plan. And when you figure out how you'll do everything, including supporting your wife and your kids, which will certainly come along, then you can marry, whether you're 20 or 40. But you were like 30 when you and Mom got married, right? Yes, but that was only because I couldn't convince your mother that we were not brother and sister. It took me 9 years to finally accomplish that. Young Eric nodded, remembering all the stories, mostly told with humor. You can wait, Eric, if you're more comfortable. Just stay in control of your body. I didn't. Tell me about that, Dad. You've never gone into detail. Ricky shook his head. I've never gone into detail because it's not a pretty story. But I guess you're now a man and need to know the truth. I tried to live without your mom. She wouldn't have me, but beautiful women were constantly offering themselves to me. It was difficult. I was lonely. I'm a man. I finally took one up on her offer, and it was a good release. But that's all it was. I tried again and again. And one morning I realized I had nothing but disdain for the latest young woman I'd just been with, and she only wanted to brag to her friends that she'd been with the Ricky Keno. He sighed and shook his head. She asked me if I would confirm it if her friends didn't believe her, and I told her I never lie. That woke me up. I had a reputation of being honest. What other kind of reputation was I making for myself? People knew I was a Christian. What kind of damage was I doing? I had to do a lot of public repenting, and private too, but I had to let people know that I had not been representing the believers in Christ, and that I had changed my ways, and that, thankfully, through the grace of Jesus Christ, I was forgiven. Young Eric nodded, his emotions near the surface. Thank you, Dad, for sharing that. I know it was hard for you. I want you to know that I don't think any less of you. Ricky smiled. Well, I'm glad to hear that, but if you did, it would be okay. Because you see, that's my cross to bear. There are consequences for every action. I knew better. My father taught me and set a perfect example for me. I did not do that for you, albeit my fall happened long before you were born. So maybe if Mom had agreed to marry you earlier, you wouldn't have fallen. Maybe, but I can't blame your mom. She had her own problems to work through. Satan was telling her lies too. She was confused and afraid. What finally made her realize it was okay for the two of you to be together? My impending death. Huh? Well, sometimes when we're faced with real life and death situations, we suddenly get clarity. I was abducted. You know about that. Yes, though again, very little detail. Well, again, it wasn't pretty. I was gone 3 days. 3 days. It seems to be one of God's themes. Ricky chuckled. Yep. In my case, it was 3 days of darkness, meaning pain. So much pain, he said as his body shivered. While I was being tortured and beaten half to death, your mom had her own come to Jesus moment. Her torture, our family's torture, was the waiting, the searching for me, the not knowing. And then my body was found behind a diner in L.A. The clarity came to Bree with my father's help and also through prayer, and she vowed she would not waste another moment not loving me. And she's kept that vow. Sorry. I can go all day without a train, but as soon as I read, one comes. Young Eric smiled. Well, that's a beautiful ending anyway. Yep, and it's not over because we have a long way to go. So, Dad, if I love Jordan and she loves me and I guess we, figure out a plan, we could get married with your blessing? Absolutely. I feel good about her. I've prayed about her. I really like her. But take it slow, Eric. Do it right. Don't let your hormones rush you. Let it develop naturally. She needs to be healthy mentally and emotionally. Let her recover from her trauma from when she was 14. And you have something right now that you have to focus on that is important. It can literally make or break you. You've been given much, so you must do much. He nodded. I'll give it my all. But, Dad, that reminds me of something else. It was something Jordan's roommate said. She said, I'm a little rich boy, pampered and spoiled. Is this true? I mean, I don't see myself that way, but maybe I have a distorted vision of myself. You have money, or you will. You were born into it. My father will turn Kino Martial Arts over to me, which is $1 billion company, and one day, if it's where your heart is, I'll turn it over to you. So you have money. Your richness, though, is your family and friends, and in that we are all very rich. Are you spoiled? Well, I don't think so, because you don't take these things for granted, and you use what God has given to you to help others. Could you do that on a larger scale? Probably. Are you pampered? A pampered person doesn't wake up at 5 and work hard all day at so many things, including tirelessly serving others, be it friends or strangers, and then fall into bed exhausted and do it again the next day without fail. Young Eric nodded. Even as you say that, it feels like I could do more, or like I should do more. Ricky nodded. Well, then do it. Thanks, Dad. I'm going to run up and check on Jordan. You do that. I'll make the tea. And don't forget, we have to speak to our team next Monday morning, so I'll let Dad know and you be ready. Yes, sir. New scene. Young Eric knocked on Jordan's door. When she didn't answer, he peeked in. She wasn't in bed, but then he heard the now familiar retching. He went to the bathroom. She was kneeling in front of the toilet, her head bent, softly moaning. Still feeling pretty bad, huh? She looked up and groaned. Please go away. He sighed. I can't do that. I don't want you to see me this way. Well, it's too late for that. People get sick, baby. It's okay. I didn't get sick. I made myself sick. He shrugged. A minor technicality. She put a hand to her head. My head feels like it's going to explode. Listen, you're going to feel much better as soon as you drink my grandfather's special tea made for just this reason. I'll fix you right up. Okay, but do you mind if I try to take a quick shower and brush my teeth? I feel so yucky. Yucky, I understand, he said with a smile. Okay, I'll leave, but I'll be back in 15 minutes because I'd like you to get the tea down before the next round of nausea comes back. 15 minutes, got it. He closed the bathroom door, went downstairs, gathered the tea his father had prepared, some herbal pain meds, another bottle of water, some dry toast, and from his parents' bedroom, some massage oil. 15 minutes later, he knocked on her door again. Come in. He peeked in and smiled at her. She looked better, freshly scrubbed. She actually looked more than better. She looked adorable, sitting on the side of the bed, combing out her long, wet hair. She had on the jeans and t-shirt he'd packed for her. Her feet were bare. He smiled at her as he came in and set the tray on the end of the bed. He immediately picked up the mug of tea and handed it to her. Here, Jordan, drink this. She put the comb down and accepted the cup and bent and sniffed. She wrinkled up her nose. Is it sweet? Well, Dad put some raw honey in it. It helps. She sipped and made a face. You got to get it down. I swear it will help you. Or you can keep puking up your guts. She nodded. I'll drink it. She took a big swallow, grimaced, and took another. Ugh, it tastes terrible. Sometimes you got to take your medicine, he said softly. She nodded, turned the cup up, and drank it down. Handed it to him and shuddered. He laughed. You are so very cute. Did you know that? She smiled. If you think that's cute, you should have seen me try to eat oysters. He pictured the scene and chuckled, then shook 2 capsules from a bottle and handed them to her with the bottle of water. Take these and drink lots of water. She sighed, but did as she was told. You know you're being awfully bossy. He laughed. That's because I, too, am following orders. Whose orders? Dr. Juneflower Kino. Oh, well, then, I guess I can't argue with that. No, you can't. So now, the next thing I need you to do is take your shirt off and lie down on the bed. Excuse me? That's not going to work, huh? He said with a smile. Oh, I'm not sure what you're going after, but no, that's not going to work. He laughed. Okay, just sit there on the bed. I'm going to get behind you and massage your neck and shoulders and your arms. I guess that's all the body parts I can reach right now. She smiled. Maybe. He picked up the massage oil, got on his knees behind her, put some oil in his hands, and asked her to hold the bottle. The minute he started on her neck, she started to moan with pleasure. He worked a long time and then slid his hands just inside the neck of her t-shirt to get her shoulders and upper back, and finally her eyes closed and she slumped back against him. So he took the opportunity to slide his hands to her throat and upper chest. She sighed and he found himself breathing very hard. She was so tempting, and she was so relaxed, and she completely trusted him. He focused very hard on the task at hand, and when he couldn't trust himself anymore, he pulled his hands from her shirt and went to work on her arms. He took about 30 minutes in all and finally took the bottle from her, closed it, put it on the tray, and moved the tray to the dresser. Now, he said, how do you feel? She sighed, keeping her eyes closed. I feel surprisingly better. I think the nausea has subsided. The headache has definitely dulled. I'm just sleepy. Okay. Well, take a nap. This afternoon, we're going to go to my grandparents' house and meet the new Keno. Oh, Nate already came home? Yes, I'll tell you all about it later. She sighed, and then her eyes opened wide. Oh, no. I totally forgot about my practice this morning. My dad called your coach and explained that you were ill because someone had put something in your drink. In exchange, your coach roped him into coming on Monday to speak to the team about hard work and dedication. Oh, wow. So sorry. But you know the girls are going to love that. Yeah, and my dad says I have to speak too. Her eyes sparkled. Really? Well, this should be interesting. Yeah, well, hope I don't disappoint you. For now, babe, lie down and sleep a little while. Will you lie down with me? He swallowed. I'm not sure that. Please. The best sleep I've ever had was the night I slept with you on the couch. He was a weak man. Sighing, he kicked his shoes off and scooted onto the middle of the bed. She turned her back to him and scooted close so he could put his arm around her. Jordan nestled back against him, sighed in pleasure, and fell immediately asleep. New scene. September 19th, Thursday morning. South Hillcrest Family Dentistry, Hillcrest, California. Jewel Perez glanced at her phone again. It was the 5th time it buzzed in the past 10 minutes. She shoved the phone back in her pocket. Jewel, go ahead and take it. It must be important. I'll cover for you. Go ahead. Jewel smiled at her coworker. Thanks, I'll make it fast. She took out her phone and walked out of the glass doors of the dental office to have privacy and called back the number that she didn't recognize. Well, it's about time, Peter Perez barked. I didn't recognize the number. You shouldn't call me when I'm at work. Don't tell me what I should or shouldn't do, and you don't recognize the number because I had to get a burner phone because of that brat you call a daughter. Jordan? Yes, Jordan. Peter, you can't blame her for not wanting to be around when you visit the children, not after what you did to her. But how does her telling you to come back later make you get a burner phone? She didn't tell you anything else? No. What else is there to tell? Well, maybe she's smarter than I think. What are you talking about? I want to come see my kids today. Peter, you know you're supposed to give me 24 hours notice. You know, as my wife, you should be willing to work with me. And you know what? As my wife, you should have supported me back when all that happened. You should have given me the benefit of the doubt. It wasn't what it looked like. She just didn't like having me around as an authority figure, and she figured out a way to get rid of me. Peter, first, I'm not your wife. We're divorced. And second, when I came in, you were on top of my child with your pants halfway down. There is no mistaking what you were trying to do. But you know what? I'd like to know why. Why would you even think about doing something like that to your own child? She's not my child. Well, I thought we were a family. But okay, she's not your child. Still, how could you do that to any child? Jewel, she egged me on. She tried to get me to do it, and then when it happened, she just freaked out. I don't understand why you won't believe me. I saw what I saw, Peter, and if I was going to take anyone's side, it would be my child, and not the word of a drunken shadow of a man I used to love. Oh, you're coming close to pissing me off. Peter, I'm at work. I have to go. I want to see my children, damn it. Why? You haven't even tried to see them the past 6 months. Why now? Why is it so urgent? Stop questioning me. I'll be by this evening. Why don't you be a good girl and invite me to dinner? She sighed. Fine. Come have dinner with your children, but they have to be in bed by 9. He hung up. She stared at the phone. She couldn't figure out what he was thinking. Why was it suddenly so important for him to see the children? And why did he have to change his phone number? Sighing, she turned and went back to work. New scene. September 19th, Thursday afternoon, Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Young Eric and Jordan arrived at his grandparents' house a little after 1. Jordan was hugged and fussed over. Grandmaster Keno immediately asked her to speak with him before they left for Taylor's game. The children were all in the living room, all 5 of them. When Jordan and young Eric entered the room, Angelina and Noah ran to them immediately. I want to fly, Angelina said, reaching her arms up to Eric. Oh, you do ya? Young Eric said as he scooped her up and held her high above his head and flew her around. Me too, Noah said. Young Eric took time to give them all a ride, except for the newcomer who was very quiet and somberly watching all the interaction. Jordan sat down, and Angelina immediately crawled up next to her and sat on her lap. Well, hello there, little angel, Jordan said sweetly. Okay, Grandmaster Keno said softly, who is going to introduce your brother to his nephew? I will, Noah said. Do you remember how to do it? Yes, sir. He looked at young Eric. Eric, please meet my new brother. His name is Nate, but it's really Nathaniel. Young Eric crouched down in front of Nate and smiled at him. The child looked at him suspiciously. Hello, Nate. It's very nice to meet you. Hello. Young Eric felt something move through him, and he knew he was being urged by the Spirit to speak. Tell me, Nate, what is your favorite thing to do? He shrugged. Watch TV. Do you like to play outside? No. Well, I love to play outside, and I love to run on the beach. Have you ever seen the ocean? No. Do you know what the ocean is? I do, Abraham said. What is it, Abe? Grandmaster Keno asked. It's a lot of water, big water, and it has waves that knock you over, and it has sand, and you can make sand castles. Very good. Nate, I bet you know what the ocean is, young Eric continued. Yes. Did you know that this house, which is your new home, is right next to the ocean? Yes. I saw it out the kitchen window. Tell you what, take my hand and you and I will walk down to see the ocean. Young Eric stood and held out his hand. He knew better than to give the kid an option. There was no option. He was going to walk outside. Come on, let's go, young Eric insisted. The little boy sighed and reached up to take Eric's hand. Eric immediately walked him out the back door. I want to go, Manny said loudly. Okay, in just a few minutes, Shelley said softly. Let's give Nate a chance to get to know Eric. Yeah, Jordan said, and you get to sit with me and listen to the story I have to tell. It's about a gingerbread man. Do you know what a gingerbread man is? Nuh-uh. It's like a cookie that's shaped like a little man with a head and arms and legs, but he can talk and he can run really fast. Manny laughed. Shelley smiled as the 4 children listened with rapt attention to Jordan tell the story of the gingerbread man. Meanwhile, on the beach, young Eric walked hand in hand with Nate. So, he began, what do you think about the ocean? It's big. Eric nodded. Yeah, it is. I like the sound the waves make. Let's stop and just listen for a minute. They did. And for 1 second, Nate looked up at Eric and offered a slight smile. Eric nodded at him. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. I hear you're good with numbers. I like math. That is very cool, because guess what? I do too. I like math so much that my girlfriend calls me a number instead of my name. Huh? Yeah, she doesn't call me Eric. She calls me 3. Nate stopped walking and looked up at Eric with interest. Why does she call you 3? Well, because I'm the 3rd person in our family with the name Eric. Your father's name is Eric. He's the first one. Then he had his first son and named him Eric. That's your brother Ricky. Why do they call him Ricky? That's a nickname, like Nate is your nickname for Nathaniel. Okay. But Ricky is actually Eric number, what in our family? Number 2. Right. And then when Ricky grew up and got married, he had a little boy, and that was me. And he named me Eric Keno III. And Jordan, my girlfriend that you just saw inside, she calls me 3 for my nickname because she knows I love numbers. Write it. Write my name? Yes. Eric bent down and used his finger to write in the sand. He wrote Eric Keno III. Nate shook his head. That's not how you write 3. Eric smiled. Well, from a long time ago, someone decided that you use Roman numerals in a name. Roman numerals? Yes, I'll teach them to you one day. Show me now. Eric nodded. I'll show you the first 5. He proceeded to write the numerals in the sand and then explain what they meant. Nate nodded with a smile and looked up at Eric. Can I call you 3? He chuckled. It's may I call you 3, and yes, you may. Nate nodded and offered another smile. So, I guess we need to head back. Your new brothers and sister will be wanting to come down to play on the beach. I don't like to play. Well, Nate, I know you like to learn and to do math, but there are other things that you need in your life. You need to know how to have fun and how to laugh and how to sing and dance and how to play ball and run fast and how to do martial arts. And that's really important in our family. And now you are a part of our family. What's martial arts? Well, you'll learn soon. Martial arts is like fighting and dancing all at the same time. Your father is what they call a grand master of the martial arts, and he's the best martial arts teacher that there is, and he is going to teach you. He's really nice. I was scared of him, but I'm not anymore. Good, because he's very kind, and he already loves you so much, and he will always take very good care of you. And my new mommy, too? Yes, she's the best. Your new mommy is my grandmother, and she loves everyone so much, and we all love her, too. He knelt down in front of the child. But you and I, Nate, we're special because we both love numbers. And I'm going to teach you a whole lot about numbers. I'm going to try to see you every week and teach you a trillion things about numbers. Nate smiled. My other mommy, she didn't understand about numbers. She just thought it was funny that I knew so much about numbers. Eric sighed. That's okay. There are a lot of people who don't understand about math. It's very hard for some people, and that's okay. But we can love math, and that's okay too, as long as we learn about and do other things too. They both looked up as Jordan, Shelley, and Eric came down the steps with the other 4 children. So now, young Eric went on, what I want you to learn is how to have fun with your brothers and sister. They already love you, and love is the best thing in the world. That's what Jesus taught. Who's Jesus? Well, he's the Son of God, and that is a long conversation, and I know your father and mother will be teaching you all about him soon, but I'll tell you just one thing about God. He created this whole world, and he knows more about numbers than anyone else. Nate smiled. Come on, let me see how fast you can run. Young Eric took off running and then turned backward and motioned for Nate to follow, and when he did, every adult on the beach let out a sigh of relief. And that is the end of chapter 15.